Hello, students. We're working on chapter 3 in the first unit in Fundamentals of Therapeutic Massage, and this is all about business stuff. So, an entry-level education needs to focus on the information and skills that are most pertinent to massage therapy. That means that I cannot, nor do we have the time, to teach you to be a specific business owner. We can create an awareness. We can the textbook can provide guidance. But if you really want to develop a skill set to be a business owner, which you can do as a massage therapist, then you're going to need to seek out additional information. I see this as a specialty, a specialization. There is a lot to running a business. And, it really is unrealistic to expect that that content is going to be able to show up in a 625-hour vocationally based program. There are a ton of free resources that you can come up with. The Small Business Association is fantastic. There are references within the textbook to give you guidance. You can you can actually go to college and take some business courses. There's just a lot of places where you can get the additional information on being a business owner. The goal of this chapter is to set you up so that you understand the two main career processes, employee and self-employed, and what you need to know and do to move forward and to start. So let's take a look at this. And I already have my glasses on. How about that? All right. So here is our textbook. Here's our table of contents, and we are on chapter 3. Now, a lot of the information that we have already discussed in chapters 1 and chapter 2, as well as the way the massage therapy program is set up here at Health Enrichment Center, including things like your job shadowing, working in the student clinic, all of that is part of this content. And this content will be discussed periodically throughout the whole program, as will ethics and professionalism. So there was a lot of unique information in chapter 2. There will be some of that here. This information is tested on the NBLEX exam, but not to the extent that the ethics and professionalism content is tested. So I'll slow down and try to point that out when that's the case. So here we go. Remember, your chapter test that goes into your grade book is on the Evolve site. So the first piece of this has to do with what is motivating you, what is driving you, what is the internal push for you to become a massage therapist. I'm going to tell you right off that you can make enough money being a massage therapist to support yourself. You absolutely can make a living wage and more. But if you're only in this for the money, you're going to be unsatisfied. It's just not the kind of occupation that you get involved in purely for the money or purely for the job. There has to be something else involved with that. It's a service profession. It's a profession where we have compassion and nurturance, where we want to help people. You should be paid fairly for providing this service. But we also have to put the income in context with other health professions, their education, and what their income expectations are. So massage therapists actually make more than other health professions with similar education, that don't have nearly as much practice autonomy as we do. Um, for example, a medical assistant, their education is actually more than what we have at entry level based on licensure. But in general, we make more. The difficulty is that we don't necessarily understand that, because the way massage therapists are paid, um, and how wages are reported and how people can become self-employed and what all that means in reporting income is much more convoluted than a medical assistant. They graduate, they go and get a job. They can't function autonomously. Their wages are set. They get a W-2. That's the way it goes. In massage, we got a lot of variations on that. So then we're going to narrow down and talk specifically about being an employee and then being self-employed. So that's how this chapter is organized. Here are your chapter objectives, key terms. You know what that means. You know what to do with that. You need to be able to use these and recognize this terminology so that you can speak intelligently, and you can recognize this on an NBLEX exam. Okay, you're going to want to read through the overview of the chapter. And then the first section we're going to get into is giving you a real world perspective, not just from me, or Luke, but trends in the profession, so that you are entering to your massage therapy career upon graduation realistically. And having a dream and being realistic can cohabitate together. So, all right. So here are our specific points that we're going to be discussing in this first section. And then this again, I strongly suggest that you come back prior to graduation and review this content, because it'll be more relevant for you then than it is now, right at the beginning. But it's important for you to start having this framework at the beginning of your education, so that you are starting to think about how you're going to proceed. So somehow you got here, and that is somewhere in an inspiration, intention, and intuition context. And now that you are here, we need to understand the difference between a career and a job, and that you can have a career as an employee as well as self-employed. So here's some information related to your motivation, and you want to develop, at least now, to start, where do you think you're going to end up? It's a hypothesis. It'll be interesting to go back and compare that to where you did end up in 5 years from now. And so that's what start with a mission statement now and then see what happens. Same with the idea of setting goals. Right now, your main goal setting plan, your main job is to do your self-study and show up for class, and look at all of the support videos I provide for you for both essential science and fundamentals, and be a progressive, self-motivated student. Those same skills will translate into how your career develops. So here's a box with an exercise, and it will help you kind of provide a framework around, your mission statement and then the goals on how you intend to get there. Um, One of the things that people don't consider, uh, primarily for self-employment, but it happens as an employee too, is the idea of risk management. And you do want to slow down. This probably won't be on the exam, but for you, you need to slow down and evaluate where you are in a risk management situation. And some of the risks you can address and you can adapt to, and some risks come from the outside that there's not a whole lot you can do about, but then that's where you uh, are able to have at least pre-plan. An example of that would be having an escape plan for a fire, whether it is in your home or in your business. You never want to have a fire. You never want to have that happen. But if you have a plan in place that you hope you never use, then you're more likely to survive, should the event occur. A lot of people think they have to do everything themselves, and you don't. And so you want to build around you a support system that believes in you, but doesn't just always agree with you. You want to have people that will give you a reflection back that is honest and sincere, not just placating. We also have to um, be realistic about value expectations. The service massage provides is so very valuable. But in many situations in caregiving, the income is not necessarily reflective of that. But there's so much else that you get from a value. Now, you want to make sufficient income to meet your needs and not have to live paycheck to paycheck. I'm not ever talking about that when I talk about this, but I'm talking about your own intrinsic value and what that means to you, but also how your services are of value to the client. Those may not sync together. So you have to think about what the demographic, the people that are going to come see you, that are going to pay you or pay you indirectly by paying the employer. Um, this is a people profession, and how are they going to budget their money uh, related to the value they anticipate from getting massage on a hopefully regular basis? And then this little statement here is trying to help you understand that the income is about the same if it's reported accurately, whether you're self-employed or an employee. So you can read through all of these examples. And then it gives you an example of um, healthcare occupations and what their income range is. And then you can compare and contrast back and forth. And that's taken from this website right here. Now, so in the massage therapy world, because we can work in so many different situations, in the service industry, the gratuity or tip is something that is usually part of the income structure. But if massage is in the more clinical medical realm, especially if insurance is involved in those unique circumstances where you work for somebody that is billing insurance, or even more unique, you're able to bill yourself. It's typically not, gratuities are typically not involved. And there's a lot of just interest, controversy about tipping in general. So I think it's fine in the right context, and you need to plan for it that way. So, for example, at the wellness spa, we try to keep our fees that we charge for massage as low as we can and maintain a stable business so that the client will have the economic space to provide a typical tip to the therapist. But what you don't want to have is that an employer tell you what your wages will look like that includes a tip. You want to know what the wages are without any kind of gratuity, because you can't, the tipping is always voluntary. So this is an interesting topic. We'll talk about this more again. So this box is trying to bring this into a very basic awareness of wages and that sort of thing. Also, massage therapists tend not to work full time. Full time for a massage therapist is about 30 to 35 hours a week, and they do 25 hours of massage, actual hands-on work within that 30, 35 hours. And then the rest of the time is doing facility work like laundry or charting or whatever. Most massage therapists work part-time. They work half-time or three-quarter time. The quandary is that you can't work part-time and expect to have a full-time wage. That's unrealistic if you're self-employed. If you're self-employed, you have two jobs. You are the employee, you are the massage therapist, and you are the business owner. So those are two distinctly different roles. And if you are an employee, that's your role, employee. And then you're an excellent team player and you do whatever you can do to be part of a successful team, but you don't have all of the exact business responsibilities, including the business risk. So a business cannot pay you full-time wages when you're working part-time. That's just unrealistic. So here's a good box that tries to compare all of that. And over time, as I am working this right now, these are brand new editions of the textbook. Revisions usually are on a 5-year cycle. These numbers may change a little bit, but the percentages and the ratios are the same. And then this is a retention-based business. This overall is not a find and fix. You're looking to be a supportive part of a person's quality of life. And so you have to stop and think about what that looks like in terms of the economics of the client as well. So a lot of times that shows up in fee charges and pricing and all of that. So here's a little bit of an example about that. And then this one, focus on professionalism, here is really self-reflective on how come that client didn't book with me again. Not everybody is going to book regular massage. And you may not be the best massage therapist for them, but there are other reasons why they didn't book with you. And so you need to be very honest with yourself. And these are questions you want to ask yourself. Ask somebody that you respect. Ask them about this. And listen to them. So this talks about problems with client retention, and then we also want to be aware of client rights and what clients are entitled to in their role as a massage client. There's also some content here about scheduling for productivity. Some people are morning people, some people are not. You know, how much time, you know, do you work methodically? Do you have bursts of energy? Just remember, if you're an employee, you have to also work within the framework of the business too. So if you want to do a massage and then you want an hour off and then do another massage, now that's not productive for the business. And if you're self-employed, that's not going to be very productive for your own income from being self-employed either. So you have to be realistic about this. And what to do about common things like late clients, or they come in on the wrong day, or, you know, are you going to take walk-ins? And then this vexing thing in the service industry, it's not just us. What are you going to do about canceled appointments and no-shows? And how are you going to keep track of it? Now, most of the time now these days, you're going to use some sort of electronic software. But if you are in a self-employed in a small practice and it's just you, you still might want to use a paper appointment book. So, you know, there's still information in the textbook on how to do that. All right. Now, if you work in an environment that has front desk staff, be kind. You would be surprised at how much they do and multitask that makes your life easier. So it's not an us and them, it's us, us. And you are not better than your reception staff because you have a license. And you have to keep records. You have to keep client records, and you have to keep business records, and you have to keep personal records. You just have to do that. So here is some information about what records are necessary. And you're going to be asked questions. You could be asked questions on the NBLEX exam. For example, how long do you need to keep records, or what would be considered a business record? What would be considered a client record? Time management is essential, and not everybody is good at that. And if you know that you struggle with that, you're going to have to come to grips with what you're going to do. You really just can't be late. It just doesn't work. I don't care if you're an employee or self-employed. In those kinds of environments, 15 minutes at the minimum is on time. 15 minutes early, at minimum, is on time. And you can't call off all the time. You know, I mean, unexpected things happen, but that should really, really, really be the exception. And things like to-do lists, putting reminders on your phone. There's lots of electronic support that can help you stay on task now. And this goes for managing money. You need a budget. This would be a place, if you struggle with this, where you might want to take some additional classes on budgeting. They're available sometimes in community education. There are free college courses available on this. There's government helps that can give you guidelines on how to do a budget. Sometimes there's even people at your local library, Chamber of Commerce, and so forth, that if you're not skilled here, that can help you be skilled. And this gives you the outline of what that is. This section here is for you to be reflective and start to develop realistic expectations. So read through this and reflect. Read through this and reflect. What is abundance? What is enough? You know, there's a lot of talk right now about what is a living wage, what is minimum wage, um, uh, inflation, what can I afford, what I cannot afford. How do I adapt and how much am I expected to do and maintain at least a level of quality of life. So slow down and sort through this as a process of reflection. Talk about this with family members or other students or your friends. This is a good discussion to have. Here's an example for you. And then this whole vexing idea. Oh, before I talk about that, this link right here takes you to the MIT's living wage calculator. And you can put in where you live and that sort of thing, and it'll tell you what your minimum wage or what your living wage is for that demographics. Really interesting. Okay, so this this thing on medical insurance and third-party reimbursement income, not in the wellness sector. Maybe something like the health savings account program can be used for people to pay for massage. And so when you are interfacing, if you work for somebody that is able to bill insurance, there is a way that you have to schedule and document and the whole thing around that. So that's this section. And here is some links to find out if you're actually a covered entity or not. And then what is necessarily to apply for a national provider identification number, which is what you have to have if you're going to be involved in any kind of insurance billing, including health savings accounts. So that's what this is. And the MBLEX, some of the item writers like to write questions related to, these numbers and what they look like. So an MPI number is what is required if you're going to interface with insurances. And then you also have to have different types of insurances for your business and for yourself. And mostly massage therapists get their liability insurance, their malpractice type professional liability insurance through a professional organization. So there's the AMTA, American Massage Therapy Association. There is the Association of Massage and Bodywork Professionals, ABMP, and then you also can get insurance through other providers. Massage Magazine, for example, has a good insurance program. We have to talk about burnout when we're looking at this aspect of a career as a massage therapist and what you can do to create a level of longevity. So physical fatigue and injury, usually related to poor ergonomics and body mechanics, which we've got a whole chapter on that. And it is not very well researched and addressed for massage therapy. So you've got to maybe change some of your beliefs about how you do massage or how you've seen somebody else do it. And then there is financial strain, and then these two go together. If you can't work enough, you can't make enough. So you can have a part-time job as a massage therapist and a part-time job doing something else, or you can be self-employed at part-time and have another source, another self-employed business. I mean, there's ways to do that. This gig economy, lots of people are generating income from multiple sources. Um, but you can't be worrying constantly about if you are gonna be able to pay a bill. And this goes back up to the budgeting and how we resourcefully uh, make decisions about how we use our income. And then there is emotional stress. And of course, that feeds up into these others too. But this also goes into the issue around boundaries and things that we talked about earlier. Um, and how you are playing your role, how well you are protecting your role as a massage therapist, and how you are managing it when the client is not necessarily respecting your role as their massage therapist, and they're not behaving appropriately either. So uh, also, emotional stress can be with conflict in the work environment. And if you are employed, the business owner should make sure that the actual work environment is not a toxic environment. Um, and there are people that are toxic, and they should not be in a team setting. And if you're one of those people, you shouldn't be in a team setting either. If, maybe you would do better if you were self-employed as a solo practice person. And if you have left a lot of jobs, if you have constantly been in conflict with people, uh, then that's a good indicator that you're not necessarily good at being part of a group. And it doesn't mean you can't be successful as a massage therapist, but you need to know that about yourself. And then there is just the stress of being on this planet. There's the stress of the risks that we talked about earlier about being um, uh, with family, unexpected things with family, and not knowing what's going to happen next in terms of, do I have to get new tires on my car? And all that kind of stuff can feed into that. However, one of the important things about massage therapy, usually, uh, which is a value over and above income, is that we are usually in an environment that is pleasant, that is not necessarily loud, that smells good, uh, that has an ambiance of relaxation and restoration. We are helping people, um, and we have a certain degree of autonomy around that. We talk about work-life balance kind of a thing. And so as a massage therapist, we have that. And other occupations don't necessarily have that. So we have to stop and think about the value over and above income and how that can be a way of um, shortcutting some of the burnout that can occur. Okay, and then we get into this whole idea of what are the pros and cons of employment and self-employment, and do you want to do a combined practice? So this content is going to give you information so that you can compare and contrast realistically, not necessarily what you read on Facebook or social media or what somebody else who's a massage therapist is telling you. Realistically, this gives you a better idea. And again, the figures used may change from one part of the country to the other, but the ratios are the same. So, read through this, be honest with yourself on what you have strengths and where you don't, and how that would influence how successful you are in these various environments. And then we do have the ability to combine. We can have two pathways. We can have our own business and we can be an employee. Just make sure that you're ethical when you do that. Ethical to the employer. You're not taking business away from the employer, or you're not living up to your agreed upon schedule because your other business, you got a call to go do a massage there. Don't do that. All right, here's some examples and an activity to help you understand that. And then one of the conundrums we have in the massage therapy world is confusion around this independent contractor status. We will go into that in more depth, but just very succinctly. There really is not an independent contractor classification for massage therapists. You are either self-employed and have your own business, and if you work in conjunction within somebody else's facility, you rent space, and then that other person is your landlord, and that is it. Or you're an employee. That's it. So you can look through and get some more data on that, but that's the bottom line right there. Now we're going to get into this employee specific idea and what it's like to have a successful career as a massage therapist as an employee. And an important part of this is knowing how to be a team player, supporting the team, and appreciating and understanding the obligations, the risks, and what value the business owner, the business expert, brings into the environment. And if you're going to be an excellent employee, then you should work for an excellent employer. And that's discussed in this section too. And if the employer isn't excellent, and you have talked with them and tried to problem solve with them and didn't just complain, but provided succinct information with suggestions, and you didn't gossip and you didn't try to get other people on your side and all that kind of stuff, then go find a better employer. It's really pretty simple. Okay, so these are all the things you sort of kind of have to know as an employee. So I'm just going to scroll through this so that you get a general idea of what's going on with this. You're going to want to have the language here. This language is likely to show up in a multiple choice question on the MBLEX, but you need it also to function once you graduate. So this here, this is, what you should look like and how you should behave if you're going in for an interview. And how do you how do you discuss, how do you have a conversation if you're looking for a position? It amazes me when we have worked with interview processes just in our realm, how many people don't even show up. Or they show up and they're not prepared. They don't even know what the job entails. They haven't looked us up. They haven't researched us. Or they show up looking like they just got out of the garden, or they just got done riding a bike or something. That's not okay. You also can uh, interview the employer. You respectfully, but it's a back and forth. And you want to do that in such a way that you and the employer are coming to a sense of agreement on how this relationship, and it is a relationship, is going to work. So this comes into the idea of negotiating employment. And then truly understanding how wages and payroll are calculated. It amazes me the number of people that don't understand this. So this is step by step on how that works. And the idea of gross pay and net pay and withdrawal of income taxes and all that kind of stuff. And you got to understand that the employer has an actual payroll burden. It's not just your wages, it's the taxes that they have to match, it's the workers' comp insurance they have to keep, it's the wages paid to non-income producing staff, such as receptionists. Uh, and, hopefully they'll make a profit too. A business owner should make at least as much as the massage therapist. And you'd be surprised how often that doesn't occur. So it talks about what that percentage is. And it's in the business classes I have had, it's 35% of gross. In a service business, it pushes maybe up to 45% of gross income. So just for math purposes, if the charge for the massage is $100 to cover all the wage expenses, not just what shows up in the paycheck, the most that can be budgeted for payroll is $40 of that. So there's no way that a business owner can afford to pay an employee 50 to 60% of the gross. It just doesn't work that way. It's unrealistic. If that's what you want, go work for yourself. Be your own business owner and see what happens. It just doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen as self-employed either. Okay. What is involved in the specifics of hiring, raises? Do you deserve one? Can the business afford to pay one? What other things are involved and what money is available? Are you worth a raise? That's a very good question, isn't it? So and then the other thing I want to point out here is benefit packages, and there's some things that in massage therapy within a small business structure may not be worthwhile to have an employee benefit package. Might be better for the employees to have a little bit higher wage than to provide benefits. And this is part of the new idea. Past generations worked for larger companies, and part of the negotiations around that had to do with a lot of these things in addition to wages. And that doesn't work well in a small business. And almost always, if you're an employee, you're working in a small business, and the business owner probably can't do that. And if they do try, it might not be very good benefits. You might do better by doing this on your own, paying for it on your own. So an example of that is medical insurance. And granted, it's a problem. people having quality medical insurance, but my suggestion is that you go directly to the marketplace and you get your own insurance, and that way you own it and you control it. Because what happens if you leave an employer, you've lost your insurance benefit. I mean, there are ways to move it from one place to the other and all of that, but if you have it yourself, that doesn't occur. Same with some of the ideas of retirement. Discipline yourself in your business to do that yourself. Don't expect a small business owner to be able to do that. As an employee, you are eligible for unemployment benefits, and this is a payroll cost. This is a cost to the employer. This is part of the payroll burden. A business owner has to pay this for you. If you are self-employed, you don't have this benefit. And talks here about when it becomes time for maybe you to move on, be ethical. And sometimes people deserve, not you, but people deserve to be fired. And sometimes the business just isn't performing in a way where it can sustain its current operations, then they may have to lay you off. That's always a really gut-wrenching decision for most business owners. So if you are laid off, then you are eligible for unemployment. Maybe not with being fired. So the next segment here is talking a little bit about various work environments, and there's a lot of confusion about the difference between a chain and a franchise. And I'm going to tell you what right now. Working in a well-run franchise business is a good thing, especially at graduation. And so be a good employer if you're going to go into that environment, because that's one of the few places that will hire a new graduate. Not all of them are well run. Not all massage business owners are doing a good job, but most are. And it is not correct that the franchise system does not pay fairly. They do. They do pay fairly. And don't believe that myth. That usually is perpetuated by people who are self-employed, and they're reporting what they made as business gross without taking all the expenses and all that kind of stuff with it. And they're not actually reporting how much they're making per hour when they factor in the number of hours that are put in, both as the massage therapist and as the business owner. So these are characteristics of a great employee, and I would want every single graduate of Health Enrichment Center to do this. And then here are some do's and some don'ts. So don't do this. It's pretty simple, right? Don't do this. Characteristics of a great employer. This is what you would look for when you're considering becoming part of an employment team. And if they don't do that, don't work for them. What employers dislike about employees? And I am an employer. And we got a great team at Health Enrichment Center. That doesn't mean I still don't have to deal with this. And I don't like it. So don't do this. And this is what employees dislike about employers. And so I shouldn't do this either. Or Laura or anybody else, any other employer. We shouldn't do this. And if we're not perfect and we do that, then we should apologize and not do it again. If I expect my employees to fold laundry, then when I'm in the facility, I should fold it too. All right. Now we're getting into the self-employed focus. And most of this has nothing to do with being a massage therapist. It's an overview on being a business owner. And this is where you do a self-evaluation on this and determine what learning gaps you have, where you are inexperienced, and where you need to go and get additional education. So here you go. There's a business plan, different types of business structures, and you will encounter this terminology on the NBLEX exam. They will ask you what is a limited liability corporation? What is a sole proprietor? How does that influence a DBA, doing business as, and that's because the NBLEX exam may not have evolved enough to realize that more and more, 60 to 70% of massage therapists now are employees. They're still setting it up for the minority that will be self-employed. But it doesn't hurt to know all this information, because this is the stuff your employer has to do. So having an understanding of all of the responsibilities and obligations they have help you both be set yourself up to be successful in your own business, as well as appreciating what a good quality employer is that you want to work for. So you're going to have to kind of know what a partnership is, and a cooperative, and a corporation, and a sole proprietor. And, here you go. This is just data that you need to have a working knowledge of. Startup costs. Here are some proficiency exercises to help you chew on this information, giving you an idea of what a basic startup cost situation would be. Renting, or where's your location at, and then do pay attention to this renting space, because that's common. Always read your focuses on professionalism. And here are some samples of how rental space can be provided. And then also marketing and advertising, and how you do that. What worked in the past is not working right now. So, how are you going to do that? What part does social media play in that? In a employment situation, it is the business owner's job to get the clients in the door. As the massage therapy employee, it is your job to keep them coming back, because you build your own client structure inside that business. So it behooves you to be involved in marketing activities of a business owner. And I'm going to say that again. It is the business owner's responsibility to market successfully and take care of all the stuff involved in a business to get those clients in the door. It is your job as the massage therapist to support retention and keep them coming back. And that can include referring that client to a team member if they are not, you have some situation or some reason for not considering yourself the best massage therapist for that client. So again, this is information more related to business. And then this is also giving recommendations about how far people will drive to get to you, how you have to consider demographics and a link to look at that. What is a target market and an ideal client for you, and how you would market to that area. So there's a lot of good information here that helps you reflect on being a business owner. Then this is stuff about how you provide information out to the public, um, how you actually develop this agreement. Again, this would be done for you if you were an employee. Um, how you would develop a website. Again, this would be done for you if you're an employee. Various media marketing and advertising. What do you do about coupons? The most common one is a Groupon. I don't suggest self-employed people have the membership model. Leave that to the bigger businesses. I don't suggest you get yourself involved in these coupon websites. You'd be better off if you want to do something to sell packages of 5 massage sessions or something like that. Although there is advances in software that are making the idea of a membership model where somebody pays once a month and they get a service for that. And then usually they get a discount for other services within that month period. And the advantage of that is that there is a regular source of income coming in, but I don't think it works well for a sole practitioner. Management is different than marketing. You're going to want to know the difference. They like to ask that question. What is marketing? Or a person is doing this, that, and the other thing. Is that marketing? Is that management? Is that licensing? So pay attention again to the verbiage in the chapter. Management is more about how you run the business, but more of the day-to-day stuff. And all the things that you would have to do for the initial setting up of the business, the licenses, the appropriateness of the zoning, and all of that. So this is a checklist here. This ends up giving you a checklist of what you would need to do, the various licenses you need, what is typical for business location regulations, and what is necessary for a home-based business. And massage does lend itself very well to that if it works within your area. Going to people's homes, and then all the different things you have to do for taxes. And you're going to want to know what these abbreviations and all that means. They're going to be tested. This will show up on an NBLEX question. So a tax identification number for a single owner, sole proprietor is your social security number, but you can also actually get a number, an employee or employer number, that is separate from your social security number. So that's an employer identification number. You'll have to have a tax ID number. And then it gives you some comparison and contrast here between a sole proprietor and other businesses such as partnerships or corporations. And don't do partnerships. It's a nightmare. Don't do it. Even though you might encounter a stupid question on the NBLEX about what tax return you file as a partnership. So you can look that up. This is what they tend to do on these questions. So that's why it is in the textbook like this. Your business will need an employee identification number to apply for any kind of small business administration loans. And an employee identification number looks like that. Whereas a social security number looks like that. All right. So here's the budget specifically for taxes. And if you are self-employed, you got to take from your business gross, everything your business brought in, and you got to put at minimum a third of that away, at minimum, for taxes, because you got to pay all what the employer would do. They would match payroll taxes that would in the future give you Social Security and that sort of thing. You have to pay it all. That's 15%. Plus any other taxes, local taxes that show up, and state taxes. And that's not counting your income tax. Income tax is paid on your business profits. That's your actual income after everything else is paid. That third is just for your business taxes and your self-employment taxes. Opening bank accounts, various types of business transactions. You're going to have to learn how to do electronic transfer of money. I had just recently my first person ask me how they wanted to transfer money. Was it Vimo or this or that and the other thing? And I went, so I had to learn how to do that. Avoid using cash. And remember, cash tips are part of your income. They have to be claimed. All right. Tips, regardless if you're employed or self-employed. That's reportable income. All right. When my finger is out, you better pay attention. Don't use cash to pay for business expenses. Just don't. Have a credit card or a debit card and use that. Pay it off every month. Budget it to do that. And then it automatically in the credit card statement is going to give you a verification of your business expenses. You also have to keep track of all these files, both business and client. And you've got to regulate and budget your business finances. So this gives you some accounting information that would help with your own personal budget as well. And you will get asked some questions about what these things are. It tends to show up. There might be one or two from this whole chapter that shows up on the NBLEX, but I don't know what one or two they're going to be. And you got to keep records. You need to make sure that you're doing the bookkeeping. And you can pay somebody to do this. If you know you're not good at it, then you can pay somebody to handle these types of responsibilities for you. But you do need somebody who knows what they're doing to make sure that you are in compliance with all of the taxes for being self-employed. Okay. The next piece of this has to do with how do you set your fees? And that just depends. There's so much that just depends on there that you're going to have to take a look at what's going on in your area, how much money you really need to make. Is that realistic? Is that a realistic expectation for what you probably can realistically charge in your demographic? What's your cost of living? All of that factors into this. So here's an example. And then what might you do to entice a new client in? Fee discounts, membership I talked about is an example of a fee discount. How to make more money. And the idea of some strategies for determining what your income expectations are and how you would get there, and what your expenses might look like in your fee structure and all of that. Fee increases, that you're asking You're asking the client to give you a raise. You know, a lot of self-employed people think that they run their own show, but you really don't. Every single client is your employer. And so when you increase your fees, you're asking for your employer, every individual client, to give you a raise, and it's gotta be worth it to them. And cost of living does go up. You learn new things, you gain more experience. Those are justifiable reasons for that. Um, so, but you got to really put it in perspective. Here's more on the no-show fees and cancellations and the membership model. So there we are. That's the business part of it. We will discuss this much more, obviously. And do take advantage of the web portal for USA.gov and all of these different pieces, and the Small Business Association. My goodness, there's so much information there, as well as the Department of Labor and the Internal Revenue Service. All kinds of stuff there that are helpful. All right, and then here are your end of chapter questions. There were places in this chapter where I was relatively firm. A little bit no nonsense. I think that's important.